7 o'clock in Gardner, Kansas. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, good evening. Got a nice crowd this evening. All right, we have a presentation this evening. Mr. Josh Powers is here to talk about the Johnson County Transit Pilot Program. Powers, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. Thank you for having me here. I hate getting read to from a PowerPoint, so I'm going to try not to do that to you. Please feel free to chime in with any questions that you have. I'll try to focus as much as I can on the things that are to Gardner. But if you want to know about the rest of the network, please let me know. So a little bit of background. The Board of County Commissioners approved these pilots late last year. We started talking to the public and to stakeholders like yourself beginning in February, and we're going to keep that going throughout the life of the implementation. These are a phased implementation. Some of the lifts are easier or heavier than others, and we expect to start the first phase, which is going to be limited to express routes in the county here in April. Could slide to May, where it's a lot of detailed work as far as time points and things of that nature. But most of the big parts of the pilots are going to come up in July of this year. So if you're not familiar, I mean, I know that the council knows about the BOCC's strategic priorities, but transit has been on that list for a number of years. And so, you know, they really wanted to take the opportunity at this juncture coming out of COVID to really kind of strip the system down to its foundation and expand in a way that we can build upon it in future years. So the goal for these pilot projects really is a better system. Our system, if any of you have ever tried to use it, it's pretty limited. It's not easy to use, especially as you get further out away from the core of the county. So we want to have a system that's really focused on accessibility and efficiency. It's going to connect housing, workforce, and jobs. And really, again, at the heart of everything we do is our vulnerable population. So folks who are living with a disability or over the age of 60 in Johnson County really want to make mobility for them an easier thing to face. So we're going to be utilizing CARES Act money. As you're well aware, there was CARES Act, there was CARISA, and now there's ARPA. And so we got, and I say we, the county transit department got about $15.2 million in transit funding. That's funding that is dedicated. It can only be spent on transit programs, transit operations, and it's a use it or lose it situation. If we don't use that money to better our system, then it goes somewhere else, and we just as soon see it spent here in the county. So I'm going to start with the express route stuff. These are the, you know, what's been the backbone of Johnson County's transit system for 40 plus years, which was moving people from the county into the urban core and back again in the AM and PM commuter peaks. We've really not ever had a lot of great service to Gardner. The 595 comes out here to the TradeNet Park and Ride. The ridership there is not fantastic, and the reason it's not fantastic is because it's not great level of service. It's about a 70-minute round trip. And if you're working an 8 or 9 hour day and you're adding 70 minutes each way on the end of that, that's not a great situation. So one thing that I think folks may be aware of is even pre-COVID, that movement of folks commuting downtown, it really was dropping off on public transportation. COVID threw gas on that fire, and obviously folks are working from home. Nobody knows what that is going to end up looking like as we come out of COVID. So we are pulling back the number of trips that we're doing. All of our express routes, 5 of them, will be running 3 trips in the morning and 3 trips in the evening. We had some routes that were doing as many as 6 or 8 runs, and the ridership's just not there to support it. So to show a couple of maps here, they are all going to be across the various service offerings the same format. And what that is if you can see, and I know it's not the easiest to make out there, but the dotted line segments are pieces that are going away. So as I move to the next slide, you can see, and I'll kind of toggle back and forth there. those meandering segments, and how I'd characterize that is, over the years, our express routes have become less and less express. They've had a little bit of mission creep, and they're wandering through neighborhoods trying to pick people up. That leads to those long ride times that we want to eliminate. So the goal of this part of the system is to make the express routes truly express, and we do that by focusing on park and rides. And we really want to make it a situation where folks can carpool or drive themselves to a park and ride, get off or get onto a vehicle that will immediately get onto I-35, make that movement, and get them where they're going. One thing I would draw your attention to is in the middle of the map, and I know it's hard to make out some of the colors because everything travels on that one line, but we are introducing a new route, the 520, which would originate out of Strangline. So the Strangline Park and Ride there just south of 119th Street, that would be a new route to head downtown and terminate in the Crown Center area. So I'll pause there real quick. Again, there's minimal Gardner impact on that part, but before I move to the local routes, any questions about that? Okay, we can always come back to it at the end as well. So the fixed route service, again, Gardner doesn't get a lot of service out here. I do believe the microtransit section of this presentation is going to be your favorite part of it because there is some benefit there for you. But again, we're going to discontinue segments of routes that are not seeing ridership. One thing that we are introducing for the first time in the history of the county is what's called Complementary Paratransit. That's a federal requirement when you reach a certain level of service that if there's any person who lives within 3/4 of a mile of an existing route, but because of a disability can't get to that stop, can't get themselves to the bus service, we have to come to their house, pick them up, and take them to their destination. So that's going to be fantastic for folks eligible disability living that close to any of our routes. So again, format's the same. You can see a lot of dotted lines on this segment or on this map, especially there on the Metcalf route, which again just goes down to 135th Street. But that segment to Prairie Fire just wasn't drawing the kind of ridership that could justify an additional 10 or 12 minutes to run down that segment. So again, you see a little bit cleaner map there. Not super exciting for you all, but we are having a new route on the 87th Street corridor that will connect Lenexa City Center to downtown Overland Park and on up to the Mission Transit Center. So again, the 403 will come out here to 135th Street, but it's not going to mean much for you all. We will have 4 of these local fixed routes running on Saturdays for the first time in our history. It's the Metcalf Plaza, the Antioch Olathe, 401, 402, 403, and 404, Quivira, 75th Street. And I know that's, again, not super exciting for you all, but it is nice to have that connection because with microtransit, which I'll get to here momentarily, we can get folks from Gardner to Oak Park Mall to these routes, and then they can continue on, or to TradeNet if that's where folks are going. So microtransit pilot has been quite successful. Honestly, it's been more successful than we'd hoped it had been. There's just a lot of people wanting to use it. We're doing well over 400 rides a day, doing about 8,000 rides a month. COVID really extended what was meant to be a shorter pilot period. We didn't think that we'd be running still at $1.50 each way almost 3 years in. It's a really, really, really low price, and quite honestly, it's too low. We've got folks using it literally 4 and 5 and 6 times a day, which is not an appropriate use for a subsidized service like this. So you can see this is where the existing microtransit service area is, and you folks are well outside of that area. This is what it's going to look like. And so, again, when I go back to the strategic priorities, it's that thought of how can we help folks that are on lower end of the income spectrum, folks who have a disability or over 60 and might not be driving anymore. When we look at census data, a lot of those populations are clustered along the I-35 corridor. And so by extending the microtransit zone out all the way to West 207th Street, we pick up, I think, about 90% of the city. So there are going to be areas that won't be served, but again, with the resources we have, this is what we can do. Edgerton also is its own little carve out there. The thing that I'd want to draw your attention to most significantly is in the existing service area structure, every ride is $1.50 no matter where you start or where you end. That's going to change a little bit because, as I said, an Uber or a Lyft, which are kind kind of similar services is going to run you $18, $20, $25 one way. So with this new expanded zone, what you see, it looks like 3 areas. It's really 2, a north zone, a southern zone, and what we call the overlapped area. So bear with me here and let me know if what I'm saying isn't tracking. But for example, if you were to start your trip, order a microtransit ride at Johnson County Community College to come out to the intermodal area, that movement from the middle area to the southern zone would be $3, so a doubling of that fare. However, if you start at the intermodal and you head up to the Mission Transit Center, or you're heading up to Shawnee Mission Parkway, if you cross that overlap area, that's now a $5 trip. So that's the tiered fare structure, $3 and $5, still extremely competitive with the private services. Let me go back to that. Microtransit is now going to run, it currently runs 6 days a week. It's going to run 7, all 7 days. So again, for Gardner, the hope is that we can utilize microtransit both to get folks within Gardner, within the city, but also if they're making those longer trips, to get them, you can take a mission or a microtransit ride all the way to the northeast corner of the county if that's your preference. You can pick up fixed route service at Mission Transit Center and travel into Kansas City, Missouri, or downtown. So really, this is a huge expansion of service for Gardner. The thing that I'd want everybody to understand here is that while these changes are authorized and moving forward, not all of the details are completely set. So if we hear from you tonight, hey, we really hate this piece of it, or we think you missed, where you drew a line on the map, then there's still opportunities for us. We want to be a good partner. We want to serve Gardner to the best of our abilities. And if you know from talking to your constituents that, look, we don't really have as much of a draw to go to Oak Park Mall, but we might need to go a little further south at 207th Street, whatever the case may be. You folks know your constituents better than I do, and my job is to hear that feedback and do what we can to serve you to the best of our ability. So as I said, we began this public comment period, or the stakeholder outreach, in February. That's going to continue through the life of the project. The express routes, we're looking here at end of April, early May. Everything else is going to come middle of July. We hope it doesn't slip any more than that. So that was a really quick breeze through. My contact information is here. I'll leave it up for a moment. Happy to stand for any questions that you might have.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that. Questions, council?
What's the boundary on the microtransit on the northwest corner of Gardner?
I knew somebody would ask a detailed question. So again, we looked at this in a pretty holistic way, meaning that this is not set in stone, but really it's, I'm sorry, which corner were you looking for? Northwest. So it's as you jog up 56 to west 167th Street.
Looks like it's Waverly Road. Waverly Road. So you're just on the other side of that, Mark.
And that's one thing.
We'll hitchhike down to that.
Well, that's one thing that we have, we don't scream this from the rooftops, but we don't deny trips to somebody that's a block away from the boundary, right? I mean, that doesn't make much sense. And the other part of this is we don't want folks having to walk in an area where there might be not as friendly pedestrian situation to try to pick up a ride. So again, if you feel like, I think you said it was Waverly, if that is not where that line needs to be, moving it a couple blocks or a half a mile, that's on the table.
I, of course, would say to move it west because
Of course.
that's my neighborhood. So that would be all the people. That's the people I represent. I mean, I represent everybody, but
Sure.
my neighborhood would want it to be out that far.
Well, yeah, if it moved out just to the west side of the airport,
About
Yeah.
Four Corners.
that would cover all of Double Gate, a whole
Oh,
lot
St.
of
John's.
St. John's.
Right.
Do we give, as Kill Creek comes down, people can come straight down from Symphony Farms?
To 167th of Four Corners.
Yeah, because
I don't
right
even know if I
now,
go out that far west.
Well, that's only a quarter mile west of where we have people.
I was just thinking you could turn around up there.
because right now, if it's 167th and Waverly, Symphony Farms isn't in there either.
Well, and if it goes out to the airport, then could people flying in use that to
Yes.
go in and get
I would
food
think
and
so.
things like that? It's not for residents only, correct?
Nope, it's open
That
to.
would
That
help
would be
that
good.
situation that we have at the airport where people fly in and we don't have that car there, but we have a bus service that they could go in and get food.
That'd be excellent.
I think one of the things that, again, we are happy to talk about that, and what we're trying to do here is peel this orange, a couple
Oh,
different
yeah.
ways. And so any expansion in any direction adds to time and the length of the trip and the number of folks we got to deploy. But the good thing is that we have much better technology than we even did 2-3 years ago. So as we roll this out, I'm not saying we would wait to make some of these adjustments, but as we roll this out, I can pull up heat maps and track every single trip. And so where we see that there's a trip generator, especially if there's some density as far as a neighborhood or such, that's something that makes sense to serve.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that and how you would manage when you want to call a ride in. Is there like an app or something like that you put on your phone and just say I want to ride, just like
Yeah.
Uber or Lyft or something like that?
It's very similar to that Uber and Lyft experience. We have an app. We also have a call center. A lot of our riders are older and don't do the smartphone thing
Sure.
or not comfortable with it. But I'd say it's about 60-40. 60% of people using the app and 40% calling in to talk to a person. That can be helpful too because folks can, we have what are called travel trainers. So if you're not used to using an on-demand system like that, they can kind of walk you through it and let you understand how it works.
Well, I'll tell you, for our disabled and elderly community,
Yeah.
this has been the toughest nut to crack over the last 15 years out here. Is
Absolutely.
to try to get public transit out that's effective, accessible, and isn't empty because a lot of those 500 buses are pretty empty
Yeah, they are.
when they come out here, and it's not really a good use of KC rides or Ride KC's dollars, and it really doesn't target the people that we really need to have that, who want to go to a grocery store or want to go do some shopping, over and over in the park. I mean,
We agree 100%. And one of the things I don't want to take up too much of your time here, but, it was 2018 that we expanded paratransit generally to the entire county. Before, obviously, it didn't come this far southwest. We thought that as we rolled out microtransit, we'd see a higher level of folks switching or at least using both. And what we found is that a lot of those folks who are using paratransit know their drivers and they don't want to change. They like to have that interaction. So I'm with you, and I think that that's really the focus of this whole endeavor is to try to really focus on the vulnerable population and get folks where they need to go as far as jobs, healthcare, education,
Absolutely.
those kind of things.
What are the hours of operation?
6 a.m. to 8 p.m. And so that's one of the first things that we hear, displeasure from riders. They'd like it to go later. And I think that's on the table. We're kind of trying to take this in bite-sized chunks so that we don't overextend ourselves.
Well, I think your microtransit will be gangbusters down here
Yep.
because I heard numerous times in the last year how the buses would take them to some central location that might help for shopping, but it was too far then for them to get to the hospital for the doctor's appointment or wherever they were from. So if they can get more door to door, that's going to help a lot.
Agree. Thank you.
I can definitely envision a time when this will be like 80% of your business. Ultimately, it doesn't matter where you are in the
Yeah.
county.
Yeah. I really think that, especially if we're talking about Gardner, it's going to represent the biggest portion of service that we offer and that people are going to actually use, just because I don't see a day anytime in the next decade in which we're running regular bus service this far south.
Well, the
I think
demand's
it's
not
important to market it as well then,
Yeah.
send it to.
And we would look to the city for any help or direction. We're happy to come out with staff and attend various functions or public events to try to get that word out there.
use the newsletter.
Is there criteria that they have to, when they call in or use on the app, to specify, hey, I've got a wheelchair versus, so that different buses are compatible? And with like the buses that you have now, you can bring your bike. Are there bike racks or something for
Yep.
the bus as well?
It's a great question. All of our microtransit vehicles are fully ADA accessible, so that means they'll carry a wheelchair, and all of them have bike racks. So it's that making sure you don't leave the pedestrians and the bikers behind, because those are important connections for folks.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'm just going to add, what I'll provide Josh with is some of the growth numbers that are heading towards the north and the west too, and that way he'll have that information as they're reassessing or looking at that. If that's the desire, what I heard from the council was a desire to see if we could push that a little bit further west. So
Yeah.
I think if I can get you some of the demographics out in that area and what's coming online, that may help with that discussion.
I appreciate that. And I also like to, hopefully make David blush a little bit. He's been very, very helpful, even outside of the Gardner area, with some insights that he has as far as where it would be helpful to run service and how we run that service. So he's been a tremendous benefit to us.
Great, thank you. Good to hear. Well, thank you, Mr. Powers.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you very much.
Thank you for coming out. Okay, we have no public hearings this evening. Public comments. This time, members of the public are welcome to use this time to make comments about city matters or items on the agenda that are not part of a public hearing. If you wish to come forward, please limit your comments to 5 minutes or less. 5-minute time clock to your left. No profanity, no personal attacks. That being said, come forward and state your name and address for the record. The floor is open. No one coming forward. We'll move to the consent agenda. Is there a council person who would like to remove an item from the consent agenda?
I'd like to take number 12 off.
Number 3 for me.
And I would like to take 13 off as well. 3, 12, 13. Do I have a motion? Consent agenda items number 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
That's it.
That's it.
So
I move,
moved.
second.
Motion Deaton, second Shoot. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstain? Okay. Consent agenda item number 3. Consider authorizing the city administrator to enter into a contract with HPI Energy for phase 2 of the gas turbine control systems upgrade.
Yeah, so I know we talked about this at the February 7th meeting when we did the phase 1. When I was looking through this phase 2 bid, I noticed that our original project budget was only $450,000, and now we're at $1.2 million. Where was the disconnect on our budgeting versus the final numbers coming in?
The 450, that was a price that we used from a proposal that came back from 2014. Last year, I informed the finance director that the price will be closer maybe to $1 million. So that's why the price is 450.
Okay. Yeah, I
And
just
it included that only included the actual cabinets, the hardware. It didn't include installation or engineering or other things.
And I had a question about that item as well. Will these improvements make it more efficient to actually run the generators, or are we still much better off at any time with the purchased power?
No, the controls cannot improve the efficiency of the units. It will make them more reliable on startup. That's about it.
So Todd, what we're chasing is reliability for the capacity.
Gotcha. All right, thank you.
That was it for me.
Do I have a motion on consent agenda item number 3?
So moved.
Second.
Motion Deaton, second Van Potter, to approve consent agenda item number 3, authorizing the city administrator to enter into a contract with HPI Energy for phase 2 of the gas turbine control systems upgrade. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstain? Consent agenda item number 3 passes. Consent agenda item number 12.
Okay, I had some questions on this. So it says it's not in the budget. How are we planning to pay for it? And is this also something that Deputy City Administrator could do? Because we said we were gonna hire her to help us with funding sources and studies, et cetera.
So this is not in the budget that was approved. It'll come out of the general fund. And these are lobbyists that work in Washington, D.C., so no, she can't handle that task. I have Kevin Jones and David Roberts from Riverside on Zoom, if you have any questions for them.
I don't have questions. I'm just concerned that it's not in the budget. And I was also hoping that we had resources internally to do it, or other resources that weren't $90,000 for the year. That just seems.
So we can lobby and we can work with the county and the state on pass-through grants that are coming from the federal government. Those are extremely competitive. We put in for we had 2 grant submissions last week that came out of the infrastructure bill for $100 million, and there were nearly 1,000 applicants for that. Our submission would have taken up 20% of that. So we are looking to leverage the consultants' relationships in Washington, D.C. for earmark money through the appropriations process to try to supplement that money. So this is an entirely separate thing that we're not capable of doing ourselves and lobbying people in Washington, D.C.
So are there any, not necessarily promises, but are there any benchmarks, or I didn't really see that, I don't think, in the contract.
No, this is
You
just
just give them the
a,
90,000
this is just a
and-
leverage play. Yeah.
Are we gonna get reports from them? How do we know?
So we will, yes, they will give us they will provide me with information on their activities, and there is a provision in there where they can get reimbursed for other expenses, and all those have to be pre-approved.
Those are my questions.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion for consent agenda item number 3, authorizing the execution of a contract with Riverside Strategic Solutions LLC for consulting services?
So moved.
Second.
Motion Deaton, second Shoot. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Abstain?
Nay.
Consent agenda item number 12 passes. Consent agenda item number 13. Consider authorizing an amendment with Venus Corp. to provide additional design services for the Waverly Road 175th Street to Madison project. My only question on this was the timing. I know that trail as part of this is going to be important to some people, particularly in St. John's area. So I'm just curious as to, do we know any timing on this project?
So the project end date is early May, I believe. We expect them to start working really pretty much any time between now and then.
Okay, so that's pretty quick. That's my only question. Any other questions? Is there a motion to consider consent agenda item number 13?
So moved.
Second.
Motion Deaton, second Van Potter. Consider authorizing an amendment with the Finiscore to provide additional design services for the Waverly Road 175th Street Madison project. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstain? Item number 13 passes. Nothing on planning and zoning consent, no committee recommendations, no old business. On to new business. Business item number 1, consider adopting an ordinance adopting City of Gardner base salary structure and City of Gardner sworn officer salary structure fiscal year 2022, as well as approving a cost of living adjustment for all city employees and an update compensation plan for sworn officers of the Gardner Police Department. Mr. Wolf.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Tonight's presentation kind of has 3 parts. We'll discuss citywide compensation issues, sworn officer recruitment and retention, and also the cost of implementation. We have identified issues that have been negatively affecting or impacting the city's compensation structure and our ability to attract and retain talent. Last year, there was inflation of 7%. The cost of everything is going up and eroding wages. Both the private and public sector are struggling to recruit new employees. This has led to increases in starting wages, and the higher starting wages for new employees creates wage compression in the organization. Other local governments in Johnson County continue to enhance their compensation packages, making it difficult to recruit and retain employees. What we are proposing is a COLA of 2% for all city staff to be implemented in 2022. This would help prevent the erosion of wages due to inflation and assists in addressing wage compensation issues by increasing current employees' wages, and enhances the overall compensation package to be more competitive with other jurisdictions. The greatest recruitment and retention struggle is with sworn officers. This is a national issue. In Gardner, we tend to lose officers before they hit 5 years of service. In order to address this issue, We recommend implementing an immediate $1.85 market adjustment. This recommendation is based on closing the pay gap between Gardner PD and the surrounding area over the first 5 years of employment. In 2021, agencies around Johnson County collected survey data, and that's the data we looked at to come up with this market adjustment. We're recommending hiring bonuses to increase our candidate pool for existing vacancies. We currently have 6 sworn officer vacancies, 3,000 for certified officer transfers and 2,000 for new recruits. We're recommending creating a separate salary ordinance for sworn officers that is more in line with the surrounding areas. On this slide, you can see basically we have our current salary ranges, our proposed ones, and how they compare to the Johnson County area average. We're recommending changes to the salary ranges for police officers, corporals, detectives, and sergeants based on these area averages. In order to improve the long-term retention and recruitment, is our final recommendation to expand career ladders in the police department. Instead of just police officer 1 and 2, there would now be a police officer 1, 2, 3, and 4. We'd create detective 1, 2, and 3, corporal 1, 2, and 3, and also create a sergeant 1 and 2. Sworn officers would receive a 5% increase at the time of promotion, and these promotions are basically at 5-year increments. What this does is it helps move them through the salary range quicker, so it's more in line with other agencies. The estimated cost of the COLA adjustment is $178,800 and $123,200 for the sworn officer market adjustment for a total of $302,000. Expansion of police promotional ladders will only have a minor impact in 2022, but will add cost to future budgets. The cost of the signing bonuses will be driven by recruitment activity. The increased wages will have some budgetary impact on payroll taxes, benefits, and overtime, but this will be partially offset by fewer overtime hours due to more adequate staffing levels. It is staff's recommendation to adopt Ordinance 2727, an ordinance adopting a revised City of Gardner base structure or salary structure and City of Gardner's sworn officer salary structure fiscal year 2022.
Thank you, Matt. Any public comment? Council? Question?
Yeah, I really like this, and I want to thank everybody who worked on it, because I know it wasn't easy to get input from every department and do all that. One thing I was wondering, for the city staff that's not a sworn police officer, could we adjust the COLA to 3% to help ease a little bit on, I mean, we're not even near inflation at this time. Is that something that we could afford, or is that possible? Anybody else interested in that? I asked 3 questions.
So, as we looked at this, I mean, where did the 2% come from, I guess? Where is that?
Do you want?
So we looked at other higher numbers. To be honest, we were just trying to thread a needle on the financial impact. We went through a number of iterations of both the police and the other, and just on appearance, it just got really high. So this is where we landed. The goal was when we worked on this was to stay around 250, 300, to try to get to a place where we weren't competing with other Johnson County agencies dollar for dollar, but that we thought was reasonable ask of the council.
Do we have any data as to, primarily for the police, what those retention and recruitment numbers potentially could be versus what they are now?
Not with retention and recruitment. We know recruitment that we're going to be in the lower half, obviously.
Okay.
Some of the agencies are doing stuff that is just over the top, for us to look at. So we can't compete with that. But we think this is a good place to start. And we looked at taking and doing steps like what OP does, what Olathe does. But if you look at that in the end, that's really expensive. And this was a way that we could work towards the same goal without locking ourselves into steps, which are really problematic for OP and Olathe.
Councilman.
They'd love to get out of that business.
Yes, Chief, I'm sorry.
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, Councilman Potter, just to expand on what the city administrator was talking about. Yeah, we don't have any of those projections to be able to say we expect to be able to hire 5 to 8 people in the next year. What we can say is that we are currently working our 4th hiring process since last spring, and we have hired nobody out of those processes. So the goal is to try to attract the best qualified people that we can, if that makes sense, sir.
And obviously, that's not unique to us.
Right.
Correct.
Everybody across the country.
Well, and I mean, I understand that, being a cop in Gardner's a far different story than Casey Mo. And I would imagine that the compensation difference, if there is one, is, because of the difference in circumstances. I just, this is one of those things that we've discussed before, that we've got to have that force there as kind of the cornerstone of the safety and security of the community. And, that's one of my personal concerns, is making sure that we're not shortcutting those who are already here, at the same time trying to get those who need to be here. So,
Did we look at some sort of a sunset on the sign-on bonus and or a repayment or cancellation if somebody comes in and jumps ship immediately?
So we've talked about that. There's a number of different ideas floating around on how to do that. Maybe give them half up front and half when they finish the FTO program. So certified officers would get paid sooner. New officers would have to go all the way through the academy and through the FTO program, which is 9 months plus before they get the second half. So
And Councilmember Baldwin, to expand on that a little bit, with non-certified officers that we hire, once they graduate from the academy, we have a statute that protects us within a calendar year of their graduation from the academy. So if they were to graduate from the academy, and say in month number 9, somebody else was going to hire them, we could go to that jurisdiction and require financial reimbursement for all their training expenses and everything that we've had with that employee.
Okay, thank you.
Well, just from the standpoint of, I know that we've had conversations for a long time, Jim, about trying to make our salaries more competitive, understanding the Floyd effect and other things that are happening that are basically decimating police departments all over the country. So I'm glad to know that this was put forth. I think it's going to help us keep some of our sworn officers, and might even allow us to do some better recruitment of folks that want to get out of the KCMOs and the KCKs. So I commend you on this, and I know it's going to be an expense for the community, but I think that given the fact that public safety is the cornerstone of, or one of the cornerstones of our town, and we're one of the safest communities in all of Kansas, I think that folks in the community will understand if we are paying our sworn officers more money to keep them here instead of going like Overland Park or Olathe. So thank you. I appreciate the time that was put into this effort.
A couple of things that I'd like to add to Councilmember Shute. I would like to thank the governing body for their support in this. This has been going on for quite a while, and the governing body has always supported it. We got support from the city administrator as well, and I really want to thank Finance Director Wolf and Deputy City Administrator Nasta. As we had these meetings, they were wonderful to work with, and there was a lot of work that those two did. And I'm very appreciative for their efforts, and I just wanted to make sure to acknowledge their hard work in this process.
Absolutely.
No, I'm good.
Okay, so, going back to Councilwoman Deaton, going to 3%, so numbers on that by any chance? Where would we be at?
The exact number on that, like, we can calculate that pretty quickly and get back to you on that. But the 2% was kind of taking into account, like Jim said, to basically try and be reasonable while catching us up. We tried not to add like too much of a burden to the budget at once, but if we added another percent, just go off the top of my head, that would probably be,
It's about 80,000.
yeah,
About 80,000.
And
probably a little bit less if it's only for not PD. I mean, if it's only for like non-public safety.
And that was my intent, because the public safety got other bonuses and other things. So if you look at the numbers, you know, sorry, I'm gonna have to look at it in front of me here, but it looks like 178,000 for 160 employees, and then 123,000 for about 35 employees. I was just thinking that, and since the COLA is a one-time thing, we're not implementing it for every year, to give the non-sworn officers just a little bit more to help make up that difference with the inflation and the way it's going in job markets, and hopefully give them an incentive to stay.
Well, I think COLA it's added to the base salary, so it's gonna be there every year, am I not
But this is
correct?
a one-time COLA though.
Yeah, I think she's talking about doing a COLA.
Yeah.
No, I only wanna do the 3% this year, and then,
You're saying not.
yeah, we are not, this does not implement a COLA every year. This is a one-time
Sure.
thing. So, you know, that's something that we can always look at down the road, but for this one-time payment, or the one-time raise for the rest of the city staff, I just thought, I mean, I know 2 and 3%, it makes a very small difference in their paychecks, but it gets a little bit closer to matching what inflation is right now, was my only thoughts.
I would like to discuss that when we look at the budget here in a month, and take care of the police now and deal with that later, because this right here is basically a mill that we're gonna have to absorb. And on top of that, right now we have open positions for the police department we need filled, right? And that's safety. We have staff that right now we don't have a ton of openings, and I think we're fairly competitive at this point. So while it would be nice, I think we'd have to look at what the impact of that would be and how necessary it is based off data on where those salaries line up currently.
I would agree with you, Mark, on that.
Well, I personally think that it would be a good idea for us to be proactive and not be in a situation where we're going to start losing people because of the fact that our salaries are not keeping up with the rest of the county. And I'm a little concerned about that. I'm all right with waiting to consider that kind of an adjustment. We are talking about what, 70,000 potentially, somewhere in that area.
Are you talking about the additional, like
The additional.
2 to 3%?
Yes.
Okay.
So this isn't a huge step up. If we were talking about 4%, then I'd be really concerned, because that would be doubling the amount that would be, for the employee pool. But I think that we could probably find a way to absorb that 70,000 if we needed to. Do we have the budget flexibility to be able to do
We
something?
do. Like, there's money in the general fund for this. We had very strong. We're still working on year end because we just got our sales tax reports for December last week.
Mm-hmm.
We know the general fund's looking very healthy. Basically, revenues exceeded expectations. We have a strong fund balance. So it's not so much. It's more about what are your priorities, basically.
Well, I think employee retention is a huge priority, regardless of where it is in our organization. I think it's good to keep good people. It's tougher to try to find people from outside your organization to try to backfill
Well, and I think
positions.
to that point, it's what is the cost of acquiring and training
Exactly.
a new employee versus the cost
Exactly.
of keeping the person in the position there.
Yep.
So
Tribal knowledge, familiarity with the organization.
if you ever if you ever hired anybody,
Yep.
you know that the cost is in the first 6 months, if you're lucky.
I'm not saying that I'm against a COLA. I tend to agree with Mark that we don't have this planned out. We don't have it thought out. Yes, while we think our fund is robust, we don't have the numbers. You said you just got them. We don't have that in front of us. I don't know.
For me, the difference on moving from a 2 to a 3% COLA for just the non-sworn officer city staff, every council updates, we're up here complimenting our staff, our Parks and Recs department, our billing department, our snow plows, our road crews, everything. It's not much on a citywide basis, but could really impact somebody's weekly paycheck that might.
I think it would still be prudent to see the numbers.
Is it something that can be revisited as well?
And even if we do move forward with the 2% today, it doesn't mean we can't move forward with another 1% in July.
I think it would behoove us to really closely monitor this. I mean,
Right.
we're talking about 7% inflation, but I think all of us know that that's a low number. That number is low right now.
That's an unrealistic
So,
number.
absolutely. So I'm thinking that in order for us just to be able to allow our employees to somewhat keep up with price increases, we're going to have to look at this again.
I'm with you on that.
So, kind of sensing to go with the 2 for now, is that?
That's where I would be.
Leave the motion as is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? And is there a motion for business item number 1?
Yes, so moved.
Motion.
Give it him.
And
Second.
Potter, second shoot. That we approve a cost of living adjustment COLA of 2% for all city staff and an updated compensation plan including market adjustments, updated promotional ladders, and signing bonuses for sworn officers of the Gardner Police Department. And adopt Ordinance 2727, an ordinance adopting a revised City of Gardner base salary structure and a City of Gardner sworn officer salary structure fiscal year 2022. City Clerk, would you please call roll?
Councilmember Deaton,
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Shute,
Yes.
Councilmember Potter,
Yes.
Councilmember Baldwin,
Yes.
New business item number 1 passes. Thank you, everyone. All right, we'll go to council updates. Let's. Why don't we start with Chief Belcher, since you're zooming in with us there.
Yeah, sorry I couldn't be there tonight. Unfortunately, some bad news this morning, but thank you for your support, and we're going to continue to work our tails off.
City Clerk,
nothing for tonight.
Finance Director Wolf.
Yes. I'm sorry I had to be a little bit vague on where we are with the revenues and fund balance right now. The reason for that is we haven't closed accounting period 13. We're trying to close that as soon as possible because we want to come back with a year-end update for you at the next council meeting. Just keep in mind that's still unaudited numbers. The audited numbers won't be available until the ACT is published in June.
I like accurate numbers, thank you, Matt.
That's pretty good with numbers.
He's not bad. Deputy Administrator.
Just thank you for your support on the pay item. It's great for all staff.
City Attorney Ryding. I'm gonna.
Sooner or later, that's gonna be a little.
I'm gonna go right to City Administrator Pruding, so I don't forget.
You don't want to start pressing.
Yeah.
Thank you. We did get the last technical memo from GBA at the end of last week, so we will be going through that and likely coming back to council with a work session in the second meeting in April. So,
Yeah, that's gonna be
interim, we're going to work with KDHE and try to get them back to the table to try to better define what we can and can't do. Because even the last time they limited us on capacity and the effluent, there's things that may have changed and options that they may consider when you look at the whole county in this area and, you know, the need for service from not only Johnson County and Olathe and Spring Hill and Edgerton. Everybody needs additional sewer capacity, so we're gonna look in that direction as well.
Excellent, thank you. Utility Director, Councilman Garcia.
Nothing tonight.
Parks and Rec, Mr. Jason Bruce.
Nothing tonight.
Community Development.
Non-Esquire. Just
Just
wanted
a-
to note that for
just a-
clarification. Just wanted to remind everybody, there is no EDAC meeting this week. It was originally scheduled for Wednesday, March 9th. Right now, it's being pushed to the April meeting. We're required to meet once a quarter. We have met in this quarter already, and so we anticipate getting some end of the quarter numbers to EDAC in April, so.
Thank you. Public Works.
Nothing tonight.
Okay. Start with Councilwoman Deaton.
Nothing tonight, thanks.
Nothing. Councilman Van Potter.
Nothing.
Okay, Councilwoman Roberts.
Okay, I know this is not popular, but I had 3 downtown businesses reach out to me about the snow removal. And I don't know if we're able to revisit if there's a consensus, but they're concerned about that we've removed the snow for 20 years. We're not doing it anymore. Can we revisit this? I had 3 different businesses reach out to me.
I actually had some ideas, but I've just today actually emailed Jim some ideas.
Okay.
Maybe we can see if there's any traction with some of that. I'm not ready to really bring it up yet, but.
One of the concerns was they did their sidewalk, but the people beside them did not. So then they had people trying to get, elderly people, et cetera, trying to get to their business, but there was snow. Didn't seem like there was any enforcement. Not everybody's participating. It just seems like, I know it's new to everybody, but it just seems like it's still a very bad situation that we've left everybody in.
So enforcement and the way we do code enforcement in general was a council direction. So if you want us to address snow removal differently, because after 48 hours, we typically send them a letter or make a personal notification that they're required to do it. If you want us to pivot to at 48 hours, we start issuing citations, we can certainly do that, but that was at the council's direction that we are giving them notification.
There was that, and in addition, the snow got pushed into the spots that was close to their business, so then they in turn had to walk further through the snow to get to the business. So there was that too. Some of the stalls or the parking spots had lots of big piles of snow, and I know there was a lot of snow. It was a little different situation, I get that, but if there's something in the future that could help this, that you said you had some ideas, I think that the business owners would be welcome to this, because our downtown, you know, we keep saying it's a destination, we want to improve the relations, et cetera. So I told them I'd bring it up.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, hopefully we're not going to have too many more snow incidents, you know, between now and
Right.
next winter, but it gives us some time then. But I think.
Last thing I want to say, we always say we can't set precedents, but we set precedent for 20 years and remove their snow. So that's my last thing. Thank you.
Council Vice President.
That's me. That's
All right.
me.
That's what I meant.
So you want me or
Can I get
Sorry.
Sure. Okay, so a couple of things. One is I want to also give some kudos again to our snow removal and road crews. They did a great job in exceedingly slippery and hazardous conditions last evening with the ice coming in, and want to bring that forward to Director Headley. Did a great job there. Thanks a lot. Keep it up. And the other part of that is also please be careful, folks. I know that patience is being frayed a little bit. I've seen some really creative vehicular maneuvers along Main Street over the last couple of days. One of them was right in front of my car. Just please show some patience. I know it's difficult because we're down to 2 lanes now on that main road, and access to certain businesses is a little bit challenging. But please just kind of keep your head on a swivel and make sure that you're not violating too many traffic laws when trying to make turns on that road, because there was one circumstance where in spite of the 3 no left turn signs on Moonlight Road, I was seeing people trying to dodge other cars coming the other way by just throwing on their accelerator and trying to get in between cars. That's going to cause real problems. Somebody could get killed. So please follow the traffic signs and just try to be courteous to folks out there who are trying to get someplace to. So that's all I had.
Council President.
So I have some things about roads. I'm glad to see that they're going to patch again.
Yep.
I mean, there's a few, at least 3 or 4 of those out there that you could lose small children in. Everybody's got to be patient for the next 6 months to fix Main Street, but at the intersection of 175th and Waverly, that Tori and I know well, since we fixed it, I've seen more people miss that stop sign than I ever have in the past.
Yep.
So I've been sitting there southbound at the stop and watched, at least in the last week, 2 people stop midway into the intersection because they just were blowing through it.
Is it because of sign location, or?
What I'm wondering is if we need something like a stop ahead that's further back.
Or even like a
Because
flashing
when
red
you're
light on the
coming
stop signs.
either direction, and I assume these people aren't traveling this every day, hopefully, but it's kind of wide open, and since we widened it a little bit, you kind of just get this tunnel vision. It's a long ways. And now I don't understand when I was going westbound, and I'm sitting in that new right-hand turn lane, and somebody just blew through there at 40 miles an hour in a truck.
Yeah.
So I don't know exactly why, but it's gotten worse. So I think we ought to look at it and see if either enforcement, have have somebody sit out there a little bit, or possibly look at a sign for, stop ahead.
I was actually also thinking maybe putting a flashing red light on top of the stop sign. I've seen those in busy intersections before where there's a 4-way stop. In other areas of the county, would we be able to do something like that that would draw people's attention to that stop sign?
Yeah, I mean, we'll take a look at the whole signage around the intersection and get some counts and things. And try
I
to
saw
get
it
a
once, but I
handle
just
on
thought it was a fluke. But if you've seen it,
Several times lately.
yeah.
It's probably because the sign is now off where people would normally see it, and they just don't see it.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Okay, I just had a few quick things. I got to be part of the interview team for the city prosecutors. And that was really interesting. We had narrowed it down to 4 great candidates, and we chose the top 2. But what was also impressive was all 4 of them during the interview process, how impressed they were, how much they appreciated the Gardner clerks down here, municipal clerks. So they all separately made several comments about that. So they are doing a great job. Just want to thank them for that. I also want to recognize we had several positions filled for boards, and I just wanted to recognize them really quick. Nate Pond and Mark Grant, the Utility Advisory Committee. Harrison Hall and Stephanie Shaver, the EDAC Committee, and then Cleverson Souza is our new Planning Commissioner. So thank them for their service and volunteering to do that. And I think that was about it. So, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion Shoot, second Deaton. We adjourn. All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?